Hello, St. Philip Deacon friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer with you again virtually. It's good to see you. I hope this finds you well. We are taping this on Monday, March 30th, so just a few days after the governor's executive order to stay at home. I hope you're all doing okay with that and not being isolated. In my own family, we've been finding ways to communicate with each other virtually through different platforms, as many are, and I hope that that's been the case for you. And again, we're glad to be able to reach out to you through this and other platforms here at St. Philip the Deacon. Today, I want to come back to the book that I concluded my last podcast with. This is a book called The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything by an author named James Martin. I mentioned in that last podcast that this is a very down-to-earth, sort of realistic book. In fact, the subtitle is called A Spirituality for Real Life. And I want to turn your attention to it today to give you one specific prayer practice. The book is not only about prayer practices, but James Martin talks a lot about the prayer practices that are used by Jesuits. And he makes it very clear, by the way, in this book, that the book is not only for Jesuits, it's not only for Catholics, it's not only even for Christians, he says, it's for anyone. These practices are helpful and meaningful to anyone, even in fact, if you are atheists. So he goes through a number of prayer practices, again, that are used by Jesuits: imaginative prayer, contemplative prayer, Lectio Divina, which is a type of prayer we do as a group here at St. Philip the Deacon. He talks about journaling. He talks about prayers like the Lord's Prayer. But one type of prayer, and this is the one I want to commend to you today, that's particular to the Jesuits. It wasn't invented by Ignatius, but he sort of refined it as a prayer called the Examen. E-X-A-M-E-N, sometimes called the examination of conscience. And it's a prayer that's encouraged to be done daily. And I want to lift up the way that Father Martin does this prayer. There are 5 moves, and again, he encourages you to do this at the end of every day. And to, as you're doing it, to invite God into the presence of your prayer life as sort of a conversation. First, and this is on page 97 if you happen to have the book, start with gratitude. Recall anything from the day for which you are especially grateful and give thanks. That's the first move. The second move, review. Recall the events of the day from start to finish, noticing where you felt God's presence and where you accepted or turned away from any invitations to grow in love. Third, sorrow. Recall any actions for which you are sorry. 4, forgiveness. Ask for God's forgiveness. Decide whether you want to reconcile, for example, with anyone you have hurt. And then finally, the 5th move, grace. Ask God for the grace you need for the next day and an ability to see God's presence more clearly. The insight of this prayer is that we see God more clearly in the rear view mirror. We see God more clearly in what has gone before us in the past. And part of the insight of the prayer is that by doing it, by reviewing the day that has just happened, we can start to calibrate our eyes and our senses to more closely follow where God is present with us so that we can anticipate where God will be with us in the future. I'll leave you with this final thought. As Father Martin was teaching this, he's taught this form of prayer to many people. One group that wasn't particularly religious, he taught the prayer to, and one of the gentlemen in that group said the following: I never knew that my yesterday was so beautiful. My prayer for you is that as you practice this type of prayer, you can also discover how your yesterday was beautiful. God bless you. Stay in touch, and we'll see you next time.